Squiz Kids acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we podcast, the Turrbal and Kombumerri people.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Thursday, November 21. In Squiz Kids Today, new rules for Roblox, Maori protest in New Zealand, secret Sydney Opera House basement, and Rafa says adios. That's what's making news, kids style.
The Lowdown.
It has over 70 million users, is one of the most popular online games for kids aged 8 to 12, and it's about to undergo a massive overhaul, giving parents greater control over their kids' activities on it. I'm talking about Roblox, the online gaming universe popular with kids around the world. And I'm talking about new rules being introduced which will allow parents to keep a closer eye on what their kids are doing while playing the game. Roblox, if you didn't know, is an online game that connects kids with other kids and allows them to create avatars to interact with one another in a bunch of different virtual worlds. But as concerns rise around the world about what and who kids are being exposed to in online games, the company responsible for Roblox has announced new measures to keep kids safe online, including blocking kids under 13 years of old from messaging others on the online gaming platform, and kids needing to get their parents' permission to send direct messages within Roblox games. And in good news for parents, they will now also be able to view and manage their child's Roblox account, including seeing their list of online friends and setting daily limits on their playtime. Too bad for you, kids. The new rules will be introduced starting next week and will be fully rolled out by March of next year. So, why the changes? Because online games for kids like Roblox can sometimes have adults on them who shouldn't be there. And if you've ever learned about stranger danger at school, you'll know how important it is to always be careful when you come across someone you don't know, outside your school or on the street or at the park or maybe in shopping centres. And the same rules that we follow in real life should always be followed when we're online.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in New Zealand, just across the Tasman Sea, where the streets have been full of protesters. What's a protester? It's a person who takes to the streets, sometimes in big groups, to express their support for or opposition to something. In this case, some 40,000 protesters marched in front of New Zealand's Parliament buildings on Tuesday in Wellington to protest against changes to a law that gives the traditional owners of New Zealand, the Maori, basic rights. A long time ago, when Europeans arrived in New Zealand, something called a treaty was signed, a document between the white settlers and some 500 Maori chiefs agreeing that they would run the country together. Protesters began their march to the New Zealand capital Wellington just over a week ago, with some of them marching hundreds of kilometres together.
Sport time!
The sporting world said adios to a truly great tennis champion yesterday when Spain's Rafael Nadal announced he was hanging up the racket. That's a fancy way of saying that he's played his last professional match of tennis. And what a career he's had, including winning the French Open, that's the tournament that's played on the clay court in Paris, a staggering 14 times. Rafa's longtime rival, Roger Federer, wrote a lovely letter yesterday to farewell one of the greatest the tennis world has ever seen. And in the letter, Roger said that while he sometimes feared playing against Rafa, he also valued the experience because each time it made his game just that little bit better. And in other sporting news yesterday, the Socceroos have just kept their World Cup hopes alive in a 2-2 draw against Bahrain. The Socceroos were 2-1 down with seconds to go in the match, only just managing to score a leveller to ensure that they are now second in their pool. But they have to do well in their next few qualifying matches, or they won't be going to the 2026 World Cup in America. They next play Indonesia in March, followed days later by China. Fingers and toes crossed.
News hounds.
Every Thursday, Squizzy the News Hound sticks his snout into Squiz Kids HQ to report back on fishy things he's sniffed out on the internet. And today his nose is twitching after AI-generated images of the Sydney Opera House started circulating on Facebook. The image shows the Opera House that we all know and recognise, but it seems to suggest that underneath it there's a multi-level secret basement with all sorts of hidden attractions. And lots of people saw the image and they believed it was real and they shared it to their social media followers, creating what we newshounds like to call a misinformation snowball. Which is to say, a piece of information that people share innocently enough, believing it to be true, but without stopping, thinking, and checking to see if it actually is. It's one of the lessons that we teach in the new AI session of Newshounds, Squiz Kids' very own free media literacy resource for primary school classrooms. Did we mention there's a comprehensive teacher manual designed by our very own team of teachers so that you don't have to be a media literacy expert to teach it? Stop, think, check, people. And if you're keen to join the Newshounds revolution, teachers, visit squizkids.com.au.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What's the name of the online game set to introduce new parental controls? Yes, of course, it's Roblox. That was an easy one. Question number 2. In which country have protesters been marching across the country to protest a government bill? Yes, of course, it's New Zealand. Question number 3. Name the tennis great who yesterday announced that he was retiring. Well done if you said Rafael Nadal.
Shout-outs.
It's Thursday, November 21. Today is the birthday of Tweety Bird, the popular Looney Tunes character. He turns to 82 today, if you can believe it. Looks pretty good for an 82-year-old. There's also going to be a big train strike in Sydney today. I hope it's not too disruptive. Imagine if it meant you couldn't get to school. Devoed. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids, celebrating a birthday today. Katie from South Brisbane, Hunter from Middle Harbour, Sienna from Bundaberg, Jad from Thornlands, Bianca from Woollahra, Jamie from Rochdale, and Marshall from Point Cook. And belated birthday shout-outs today go to Charlotte from St Ives, and Jessie and Toby listening all the way over there in Umbabani in Eswatini, formerly Swaziland. It's great to have you listening. And classroom shout-outs today go to Class 4S with Ms Matthews at Mariah College in Queen's Park, Class 3-4C with Miss Cole at North Rocks Public School, Class 4N with Mrs Moon at Riverbank Public School, Class 3U with Mrs Foster at Kambala School in Rose Bay, and Class 3-4QM with Mrs Quinn at Mount Riverview Public School. And finally, a special shout-out to my new friend Alex from Strathpine here in Brizzy. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout out, or if you're after a classroom shout out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au or fill out the form on our website. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again tomorrow with the Kids vs Adults Weekly News Quiz. Your chance to prove who's been paying the most attention to the week that just was. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.